Imagine a world where men could become pregnant and give birth. How would society change? In this story's anime setting, gender isn't limited to just 2. Instead, there are 6 distinct types, and male pregnancy is completely normal. We follow the Fujioshi household, and its main character, Masaki, is a male Omega, married to his alpha husband, Hiromu, and together, they're raising their young son, Hikari. Wanting a healthier environment for their child, they relocate to the suburbs. Hiromu works an office job, while Masaki stays home to care for their now 2-year-old son. Their family life is warm and loving, and Hikari is as adorable as he is cherished. However, their happiness is shadowed by an ongoing societal discrimination against Omegas. Many people believe alphas should only be with other alphas, which raises the question, shouldn't alpha-omega pairings be natural instead? This prejudice is exactly why Masaki and his family left their previous homes. Hiromu, who deeply loves his family, becomes frustrated whenever coworkers bring up these biased views, unable to accept the unfair treatment directed at Masaki. At Hiromu's office, Tomohiro felt hopeful that things would go better with Hiromu's neighbors this time. He knew Hiromu had his fights about it, but it sounded like the move was for the best. The last place was pretty bad, considering the discrimination against Omegas. Hiromu just wished he had noticed it sooner. Wearing a sinister expression, he mentioned how those people truly vexed him. Even Tomohiro got a bit scared, saying he'd make Hikari cry. But right now, seeing his family smile was the only thing that mattered to him. Tomohiro called him a love-struck fool. He could see Hiromu had really changed. All that hard work was worth it. However, Tomo told Hiromu to get back to work and stop watching his family's video on repeat. Hiromu argued that he just couldn't see how precious they were, and they'd start bickering. As Masaki got to the office, everyone was captivated by how adorable Hikari was. His cheeks were so soft and smushy, his eyes so big and round, and his hair was all curly. Tomohiro then informed Masaki that Hiromu had gone to bring the car around. With strange faces around him, Hikari would start crying, so Masaki went to pick him up. In the process, his bag spilled out its contents. While helping him pick them up, one of the guys found a document showing that Masaki was an Omega. At that moment, the light in Masaki's eyes faded away. Just as the guy made a comment, Shiraki slapped some sense into him. Masaki was startled, and so was Hikari. Still being around Hiromu's subordinates, Masaki tried to maintain a calm composure. He told Shiraki it was fine. It wasn't like he hid who he was. The guy apologized, explaining he thought their boss married within his type. Hiromu then showed up, and little Hikari cried into his arms. Getting home, Masaki put Hikari to bed. He really liked that mole on him, and got happy when people said he looked like Hiromu. Apparently, Masaki spent 10 months with Hikari inside him. Okay, now how does that even work? Hiromu then asked for the same kiss that Masaki gave to their child. He wanted it right now. Dressing his hair, Masaki kissed Hiromu where his mole was. He was stroking Hiromu's hair with the same hand and kissing him with the same lips. But with him, they turned naughty, and Hiromu liked that. He pulled Hiromu closer, kissing him passionately. Then, Hiromu mentioned one of their newbies was hitting on Masaki. Masaki blamed Tomohiro for telling him about that, and he said it wasn't like that. Hiromu wondered if it was his self-effacing tendencies that were acting up again. Masaki didn't like it when he put it that way. He'd then go make tea for them. In the kitchen, Masaki brought up how overthinking things was Hiromu's bad habit. However, the only thing Hiromu worried about was Masaki's pheromones. He saw how that newbie was looking at him. Masaki assured that he belonged to Hiromu, and only him. Hiromu loved every last thing about him. By evening, Hikari woke up with a smile on his face as he saw Masaki. Before the little boy could wake him up, Hiromu carried him to the side. With Masaki sleeping, Hikari would have to play with Papa. Hiromu asked if Hikari cried back then because he knew Masaki was hurting. He figured that was what happened. After all, Hikari loved Masaki, and so did Hiromu. Together, they'd all protect each other as one big family. Shortly after, Masaki jolted up, realizing he overslept. But then, he saw Hiromu and Hikari cuddled up, sleeping next to him. He then waked them. Following that, the Fujiyoshis would set up their Christmas tree. This was their first time having one. Hiromu then called Hikari to put on the star. He told the little boy that the star was like him, a shining star of hope that guided them all. That was what he was to Hiromu and Masaki. It was part of why they called him Hikari, meaning light. Hiromu would then carry him, and he'd put the star at the top of the tree. With the push of a button, the lights all came on. Hikari marveled at its beauty. Masaki also told Hikari how he lit up their lives with his special sparkle. Because of him, Hiromu and Masaki were never scared and never lost their way. Hikari would then play with the star again in a coloring book. He pointed to a starfish that looked just like it. When they went outside, they met a lady, and Hikaru went, "Hikun makes matcha, and Papa sparkle like a star." They then go to the big Christmas tree in town, and he was happy seeing the big star. The next night, Masaki told Hiromu how Hikari was calling all the stars he saw Hikun. He even told their neighbor about it. He also said the 2 bells on the tree were Masaki and Hiromu, and since Hikari was shining over them, they never had to be in the dark or scared. Hiromu was so happy, saying their son was an angel. He turned out to be such a great kid, and Masaki gave it all to Hiromu's words of affirmation. The next day, while Masaki was on the phone, Hiromu wandered his way to the door. Seeing that it was dark outside, he turned to light up the Christmas tree, but when he turned on the switch, the lights didn't come on. He'd shake the tree, causing the star to fall and break on one end. Hikari's loud cry caught Masaki's attention. He rushed over to check on him, and Hikari started apologizing. Seeing the broken star, Masaki didn't mind. What mattered was that Hikari was alright. Masaki consoled him, assuring him that Papa wouldn't be mad. Seeing that Hikari was crying because the lights wouldn't come on, Masaki tried to remember if he had plugged it back in after cleaning. Without the star, Hikari feared that Papa and Masaki would be in the dark and scared. He definitely got a few things mixed up, but without a doubt, he was a kind child. Masaki told him there was nothing to be scared of. So long as Hikari was here, Papa and Masaki would never be scared. Soon after, Hiromu returned home. He'd go to Hikari, noticing that his eyes were a bit red. Hikari was still sad and wouldn't welcome his Papa home. Hiromu had brought a present for him. It was a new star, and Hikari was joyous once more. His cute expression made his parents happy as well. Then, they'd go ahead to put up the new star. Meanwhile, their next-door neighbor had their son, Yuki, over, and she told them about the male couple. She mentioned they had a kid, and he said it sounded annoying, but since they were neighbors now, she told him he'd better get along with them. Yuki felt he wouldn't have to care, so it was fine anyway. One day, while Hiromu and Masaki were out playing with Hikari, they bumped into Yuki. However, he suddenly ran away without saying a word. Dang man, never seen a gay couple with a baby? Me neither. The next day, while Hiromu was out for work, Hikari was sad because he missed his Papa. Yuki's mom met Masaki with the little boy, and after hearing why Hikari was sad, she said she had the perfect playmate. Just then, Yuki showed up, and his mom called him over. After introductions, she asked him to play with Hikari for a while. Yuki would immediately refuse, saying he didn't know how to deal with a kid, but his mom urged him not to be so rude. He and Hikari then introduced themselves to each other, and in the process, they bumped heads, and Hikari instantly liked him. From that moment on, Hikari grew attached to Yuki, calling him Yuku. Yuki was too scared to carry him, but Masaki simply put Hikari in his arms. It wasn't as hard as he thought, and who could say no to that adorable face? Hikari was usually shy with strangers, but he wasn't afraid of Yuki at all. Masaki figured it was because he had a trustworthy aura. However, Yuki doubted a loser like him had something like that. He has self-esteem issues. Following that, Hikari and Yuki would play with toys, read, and even nap together. Hikari loved Yuki, even though they'd only known each other for a week. It seemed Yuki had slowly started to tolerate him. Masaki appreciated him for keeping Hikari company every day, but he reminded Yuki to prioritize his friends in case he had plans with them. Yuki said there was no chance of that, so Hikari had him all to himself. Yuki thought Hikari was weird for wanting to spend time with a loser like him, and Masaki couldn't help but overhear the way Yuki kept talking down about himself. Later that evening, it was still on his mind. He figured it was a bad habit Yuki had. He said it the first day he and Hikari played together. Soon after, Hikari came to find him, wearing only shorts. He was supposed to be in the bath with his Papa. Hiromu then came around, explaining that Hikari started crying after he took off his clothes. In the end, the three of them hopped into the bath together. Hearing how Hikari hung out with Yuki again, Hiromu was starting to get jealous. It was the first time Hikari had liked someone besides them so much. For the first time in his life, Hikari loved a complete stranger. Masaki hoped those feelings would get through to Yuki, so he'd think better of himself. Hiromu then teased, saying Masaki would know best about that sort of thing, and hearing Masaki go on about Yuki also made him jealous. The next day, while at the mall, Yuki happened to come across Masaki and Hikari. He was by himself today. He couldn't cook and his mom was out, so Masaki asked him to come eat with them. Yuki was freaked out by Hiromu, so he was a bit uneasy, but Hikari told him that Papa was lovely and cool and strong, and his cheerfulness would eventually rub off on Yuki, causing him to smile. Shortly after, they came across a couple, and the man told Yuki to make friends his own age. He was antisocial enough as it is. Those words got to him. Yuki then put Hikari down, making him sad. But Masaki pointed out to the couple that Yuki and Hikari were friends. Hikari had gotten so attached to him, it was making Hiromu jealous. The couple thought that was actually cute. Yuki explained that the man from earlier was the father of a classmate. The man had always lectured him like that, and he never knew what to say. That same man had also taught Masaki a lot when he first moved here. Yuki thought the man was right. He'd been like this since he was a kid. Given that he never had friends, he had no idea why Hikari was so friendly with him. With Hikari being too young to know better, Yuki felt he'd disappoint him someday. However, Masaki reminded him of the moments they played in the sandbox, read picture books, and even napped together. That was all the stuff Hikari had never done with anyone but his parents. Back at home, while they napped together, Hiromu felt like they had a second, bigger kid. Masaki pointed out that Yuki got scared whenever Hiromu glared at him. But as the breadwinner of the house, Hiromu explained he had to assert his dominance. He realized Yuki was somewhat like how Masaki used to be. Masaki kept putting himself down, and Hiromu had to pretend not to notice. His wholehearted devotion to his partner was a total one-way street. Nevertheless, Masaki had improved enough to help someone else out now. To close the moment, he and Hiromu would share a passionate kiss. The next morning, as they had breakfast, Masaki suddenly fell. Hiromu rushed over, checking out his head, and he noticed Masaki had a fever. Just as Hiromu touched, they both had a vision. Later, Tomohiro would come over with a few things. Hikari still didn't like him, and he didn't know why. When Yuki came in to check on them, Hikari got all cheery again. He was here just in time for Hiromu's strategy meeting. Since Masaki was everything to Hikari, he'd eventually start to experience withdrawal if he couldn't see Masaki for too long. So the plan was to play with Hikari to get his mind off it. Hikari had also been extra demanding lately, and Hiromu happily spoiled his son. While the meeting went on, Hikari joined them squatting in the same position. They gushed over how cute he was. He was like an angel. Yuki and Hikari would then spend most of the time playing. Hikari started distributing toys to everyone, and when he mentioned Masaki, they got worried. So Hiromu pretended to send the toy to Masaki with a magic spell, though he just threw it outside the little kid's view. Tommo asked Hiromu to go check on Masaki, but he couldn't. Apparently, Masaki was in heat. His pills had grown less effective lately. Yuki wondered if being in heat was really that bad. Although Masaki said it wasn't bad at all when the medicine was working, Hiromu never quite knew how to handle times like these. Yuki suggested asking their parents for help, but Masaki's parents weren't around anymore, and Hiromu never saw his. Just then, Hikari came to Papa, asking where Masaki was. Hiromu told him Masaki was sleeping, and Hikari was about to start crying, so he took him to have lunch. Meanwhile, Yuki thought it was scary dealing with things one didn't understand. Marrying outside one's type probably came with a lot of that. Meanwhile, Masaki lay in bed, complaining about how his body was in pain. While going to check on Hiromu, he'd suddenly hear all three of them arguing in the kitchen. After some time, Hiromu, Tomohiro, and Yuki finally managed to make udon, but Hikari looked bummed out when trying to eat it. He'd ask about Masaki again. Hiromu would try to distract him with the food, but nothing he did was working anymore. So, Yuki took Hikari to check on Masaki. Getting into the room, he was bothered by how pale Masaki looked. Since the pills weren't doing the trick, the hospital had given Masaki a shot. There were a few side effects, but he'd be better soon. Seeing his little boy sad, Masaki assured Hikari that he'd be better soon. He'd just have to wait a little longer. But Hikari would only start crying again. Yuki returned Hikari to Hiromu. Hiromu told Hikari to stop crying. He knew how hard it was waiting to be with your favorite person when they were suffering, especially when you couldn't do anything. But if anything were to happen, Masaki would blame himself. So, Hiromu promised to welcome him back with a smile and be patient until his partner felt better. Following his papa's footsteps, Hikari would be patient too. The next morning, while everyone was still asleep, Hikari woke up, and upon seeing Masaki in the kitchen, joy filled his eyes. His noise would wake everyone up. Masaki opened up his arms to him, but Hikari chose to remain patient. Hiromu let him know he was free to go to Masaki now. So, little Hikari ran to him, arms open and crying. Hiromu was glad to see Masaki was feeling much better. He'd embrace his family with a warm hug and a smile. Masaki was woken up from a dream where a man had asked if he thought he'd truly be happy living together with someone from a different world. But that dream happened to be an old memory. Later, Hikari showed off the belt his papa had bought for him for being a good boy. He also mentioned that Masaki might end up under the weather like that again sometime. But with Hikari around, he knew they'd be okay. Hikari was their hero. The next moment, they saw a car parked in front of the Fujiyoshis. An old man stepped out, commenting on Masaki's haircut. At this point, Masaki figured he might have had a premonitionary dream. It had been a while since he last saw Koji, Hiromu's father. Koji wondered why he hadn't been given the new address since they moved. Masaki apologized, saying they wanted a better environment for raising children. However, Koji thought he might have experienced difficulties again. He assumed Masaki had been tired of living in the alpha world by now. With a smile on his face, Masaki replied, "Not in the slightest." Koji wanted to wait in the house for his son, but suddenly, Hikari grabbed his leg, telling him not to go in. Koji was glad to see his grandson, saying he was brave for protecting the house in Hiromu's absence. Hikari, on the other hand, only got angrier at him. Recalling how he opposed Masaki and Hiromu's marriage, Koji had mentioned that Hiromu had looked at him the same way. With his grandson insisting, Koji decided to leave and return tomorrow. As the car drove away, Hikari celebrated his victory with Masaki. At nighttime, Hiromu was oozing with murderous intent, having heard what happened. He hated how his father was always going after Masaki behind his back. It was obvious Hiromu and his father didn't get along. It was the same when he and Masaki were dating. Koji had Masaki looked into, talked to him, and pressured him. Koji was an important man and an alpha brain to the core. Naturally, he was dead set against the pairing with Masaki. Ever since, things have been awkward. Hiromu's dad was the director of Fujioshi Construction, a well-known big company. However, Hiromu worked for a rival company instead. He was currently learning the trade, and someday, he'd return and inherit both the company and the house. In exchange, his father agreed to keep his nose out of their marriage. Yuki reasoned that Koji might have just come to see Hiromu, but Hiromu visited his father regularly already, and their deal was minimal contact with Masaki and Hikari. Some might think it a bit extreme. However, Hiromu said that people convinced of their righteousness didn't hesitate to use it as a cudgel. He knew his father had never treated Masaki with any dignity at all, and if Koji refused to see eye to eye, then Hiromu felt it was better to cut all contact. Masaki claimed he wasn't exactly acting in good faith either. He and Hiromu had decided that their being together was all that mattered, and never even asked how Hiromu's father felt. Since they had Hikari, Masaki could see things from a parent's point of view. He tried to make Hiromu see reason, but Hiromu yelled, questioning if he had forgotten what Koji said to him. At that moment, Hikari's belt fell, and he started crying. Hiromu apologized and kissed his little boy goodnight. Then, Masaki put him to bed. Hiromu felt Masaki was strangely calm when it came to his father. Yuki would also mention how composed he was while talking to Koji earlier. Hiromu admitted his father didn't actually dislike Masaki. The problem was the fact that Masaki was an Omega, and a rare case. Masaki's parents also weren't Omegas. They were always kind to him, but occasionally apologized to him in tears for letting him be born an Omega. When Hiromu's father heard that, he asked Masaki if he wanted to pass that grief to Hiromu and the child inside him. He assured Masaki there was nothing wrong with him. It was just they lived in different worlds, and he claimed everyone would be much happier staying where they belonged. He'd asked Masaki to break up with Hiromu. As for the child, he felt it might be better off not being born. Dang, I can see why Hiromu hated him. They doing fictional segregation love here. Masaki already saw his Omega status as something that hurt people, so Hiromu couldn't imagine how harsh his father's words might have hit him. Yet, Masaki chose to accept him and gave birth to Hikari. Because of that, Hiromu wanted to give them a worthy future of Masaki's courage. He didn't expect to ever see eye to eye with his father. He just wanted to protect his life with his family. While Hiromu sat alone, Masaki asked if he wasn't coming to bed yet. Hiromu was reflecting, and he'd asked Masaki to comfort him. He suggested they all go out tomorrow as a family, but Masaki felt he needed to have a proper conversation with Koji. He wanted Hiromu's father to see them as they were now. Masaki mentioned that Koji said Hikari looked like Hiromu, with the kindest expression. Hiromu still felt his father was asking for too much. Nevertheless, Koji's statement made Masaki really happy. Because he had Hiromu and Hikari, Masaki felt like he could handle anything. He wanted to look the person Hiromu respected the most in the eye, telling him that he was Hiromu's spouse. As they kissed, Hiromu also promised to tell his father how much he still loved his family. No matter what his father or people said, that would never change. But that sweet moment got interrupted by Hikari's crying. His parents would comfort him, and he'd fall asleep immediately. He was still holding onto the belt, and probably saw it as an acknowledgement from his papa. Hearing how Hikari proclaimed he was going to be a hero and protect him, Hiromu was glad to have such a powerful hero on his side. Despite trying to use tape to fix the belt, it didn't work. So, Masaki told Hiromu he'd buy some glue the next day. Without his belt, Hikari asked Papa if he could still be a hero. Of course, Hiromu let him know he was. At that moment, the doorbell rang. Over at Yuki's place, he and Tomohiro watched from the window, hoping things would go well for the Fujioshis. Hiromu told his father that coming to his house while he was away was completely out of line, but Koji didn't think he would need something to come see his own son and grandson. He acknowledged how Hikari had grown to resemble Hiromu, though he would have preferred Hiromu marry Tomohiro. He doubted they would have ended up with such a charming son. Hiromu slowly lost his temper. Seeing how small the house was, Koji asked his son to come back home. Their house was too big for just one old couple. Hiromu would refuse, having no intention of leaving his family. He wanted things to stay as they were, but Koji didn't come here to tear them apart. And while he had no complaints about Hiromu, he didn't care for the way things were, saying it set a bad example. That was why he changed his thoughts about Masaki. Hiromu would be shocked to hear his father say it was fine to have an Omega spouse. They even had an alpha kid who was growing up healthy. Koji saw Masaki as being a good mother and had a good education, but still, Hiromu didn't like how his father always referred to Masaki as an Omega. He felt his father couldn't understand the bond he shared with Masaki. The day in class, before they even met, he knew Masaki was there. And at that moment, he instinctively knew Masaki would be his future partner. At that time, he declared to his father, "Masaki is my destiny." So dramatic. If he and Masaki lived in different worlds, Hiromu felt it was the same between him and his father, and he was alright with that. Koji tried to explain that he intended to treasure Hiromu's spouse and their child. We turned back to Yuki's place, where he mentioned that he loved the Fujioshi family. Even though he'd only just met them, he wanted them to always be smiling. He wondered if they'd actually be torn over some stupid, old-fashioned reason. Tomohiro and Hiromu lived close while growing up, so he'd known the family for a long time. Since they were kids, Hiromu worked like a machine at his work and studies, trying to meet his family's hopes for him. Then, one day, on the way back from giving an alumni lecture at his old university, he told Tomohiro he had found his soulmate. Thinking it was a silly joke, Tomohiro laughed, but after a while, Hiromu introduced him to Masaki. Tomo assumed it was just a casual fling. Masaki especially was so down on himself about being an Omega. Soon after, news about Masaki's pregnancy came. Tomohiro wasn't against it, but he asked Masaki if he was sure, since he didn't want to pass on his Omega traits. Masaki had realized it wasn't just about what he wanted. The thought that he was carrying a new life created by Hiromu and himself made all his stubbornness up till now seem so petty. This was the happiest he could ever be. Tomohiro couldn't help but be moved, and he felt the same when they got married. Hikari was what made them a family, and as long as he was there, they'd be fine. Back at the Fujioshi household, Koji approached his grandson. Hikari told him to stop bullying his papa. Despite Koji trying to explain himself, Hikari stood his ground, telling him to apologize to Papa. Hearing that, Koji realized he had gotten things wrong all along. So, he humbly apologized and begged for forgiveness. The truth was, he came here to tell Hiromu and Masaki that he wanted to make up. Hikari taught him that he should have apologized from the beginning. He saw his grandson as a real treasure and understood why his parents protected him. And once again, Hikari won. He was and would always be his parents' hero. Before Koji left, Masaki thanked him for allowing his marriage to Hiromu. He could truly say that meeting him was the best thing that had ever happened to him. Although he couldn't change his type, Masaki promised to do all he could to honor the Fujioshi name. Koji leaned in close to him, saying his short hair suited him better. Although he never experienced it, he felt that having someone with whom you could form an unbreakable bond was truly a lovely thing. He wished the both of them happiness. Hiromu would pop out of the corner, telling his father not to take advantage of Masaki's kindness. He was a jealous husband. Hikari would then call Koji Grandpa in the cutest voice, and it brought so much happiness to the old man, he started crying. Because you haven't liked the video and subscribed to my channel. Here on my Shoujo Weekly 2, we learned about the Omegaverse. I didn't know what this was until some girl explained it to me. I can't believe this is a subgenre of fiction. I thought it was like fighting game terminology or something. BL, real, seal, something that rhymes with me. Click the like and subscribe to me. 2 months later, Hikari woke up to his parents wishing him a happy birthday. Yuki, Tomohiro, along with others, would come bringing presents. After that, Hikari received 5 packages from his grandpa too. In the kitchen, Masaki told Hiromu that before he met him, he thought he'd live the rest of his life alone. But getting together with him, having Hikari, and a house full of people made him so happy. They'd kiss each other, which some of their guests happened to see, including Hikari. Hikari would then run to Masaki, screaming, "Acha!" That was what he usually called kids his age or younger to him. It can only mean one thing, and it brought tears to Hiromu's eyes. Waking up the next morning, Hikari would start crying, but Masaki would pick him up immediately, calming him down. And as he mentioned they'd be going shopping today, Hiromu was in tears, videoing that sweet moment. At the mall, Hikari pointed at an outfit he liked. He wanted a match with Papa, but Hiromu wasn't so sure he could pull it off. Lately, Hikari had liked the idea of matching outfits. Hearing that Masaki's next child might be a girl, Yuki felt jealous about Hikari having a sibling. He was an only child, but so were Masaki and Hiromu. Tomohiro was the only one with 2 younger brothers. Given that a girl was an unfamiliar territory, Masaki was a bit worried about it. Goto would then approach Hiromu and get introduced to Hiromu's family. He mentioned how Koji had been boasting about his grandson, but when he saw how Hikari was happy to be born an alpha, Masaki's expression changed. Yuki was about to let Goto have a piece of his mind, but Tomohiro stopped him. Realizing how insensitive he was being, Goto apologized to Masaki. It seemed a lot of old alphas Hiromu knew were like this. At a younger age, people always felt bad for Masaki when they found out his type. His parents always apologized for putting him through this. Masaki kind of knew why they always pitied him, but because his parents were so kind to him, he forgot what he really was. At home, he'd wake up from a nap, seeing Hiromu reading a book with Hikari. It was a book to prepare Hikari for becoming a big brother. The old trope where the stork brought a baby. Even if their next child was an Omega, Masaki hoped they wouldn't have to go through what he did. The next morning, when Yuki came over, Hikari was playing the role of a big brother with his toy. He had internalized the whole thing. Yuki mentioned that little kids were quite sharp. He said that when he was about Hikari's age, he correctly guessed the sex of the baby his aunt was carrying. Hikari guessing Masaki's pregnancy probably wasn't dumb luck. However, he wondered if he knew the baby's type as well, and started thinking that if the baby were to be the same type as him, then it would probably be best not to have her. Masaki then asked Yuki to look after Hikari for a bit. Leaving the room, he called himself a monster. How could he be having thoughts like these? Spiraling, he got scared. Masaki had never thought this way with Hikari. He called himself pathetic. He was the one person his daughter couldn't have rejecting her. No matter what, he was supposed to protect her. Hiromu would come back, asking why he was standing there. He'd walk to Masaki, giving him a warm hug. At that moment, Masaki calmed down. He'd hug his husband, and they'd kiss. Hikari saw them and immediately wanted to join the hug. Later that night, Hiromu told Masaki he was probably feeling nervous because there were more people he wanted to please now. With Hikari, they had promised they'd protect their child, and that was that. He assured Masaki that it'd be no different this time. This time around, they had Hikari as a powerful ally. Cuddling together in bed, they joined Hikari to read his book. Hearing Hikari's cute words lifted the gloom that had plagued Masaki's mind. 6 months later, Koji called to check on his son and their family. Hiromu promised to stop by and asked his father not to make any trouble for Masaki and their children. He made it clear they needed pure family time right now. He wondered if his father didn't want to know what type his daughter was. After all, Koji put more weight on it than most. He then asked for her name, and Hiromu replied, Hinata, meaning son. Turns out, it was Hikari's idea. He was already taking his big brother duties seriously. Later, while Hikari was having some jelly, he wanted to feed his baby sister, but Masaki told him to stop because she couldn't have that yet. Hikari felt bad for her, and they'd both start crying. Hiromu, along with Tommo and Yuki, came along, asking why they were crying. Masaki assured him they were fine. They just loved each other so much, they brought each other to tears. Hiromu would give them some credit. After all, they were disoriented in an unfamiliar place. Masaki, however, felt nervous. This was only his second time at Hiromu's parents' house. Hiromu said he was unsure if his parents would be home tomorrow. Koji was stuck on a business trip because of the bad weather. A bit later, Hiromu suggested they all play hide and seek. They'd play rock, paper, scissors to pick who it would be. Hiromu ended up the finder while everyone else went to hide. He decided to find Hikari first, but the first person he caught was Tomohiro in a very obvious spot. Bro wasn't even trying. Next, they found Hikari burying his head under a pillow. He was so cute, Hiromu had to take pictures. After catching him, it was Hikari's turn to find everyone. Hinata was lying in front of Hiromu, who was hiding under the couch. Hikari would find his little sister first, before looking under the couch and catching his papa. Following that, he found Yuki. And once again, Tomohiro was hiding in a very obvious spot. They'd continue playing around until it was time for Hinata to be it. And she quickly found her big brother. Eventually, Tomohiro felt the game was getting too repetitive. There were only so many places to hide in the living and dining rooms, so everyone agreed to use the bigger spaces of the house. Tomohiro would go seeking with the kids, and the rest hid. Masaki was anxious about wandering around his father-in-law's house. He thought it was too magnificent. Going into the room ahead of him, he recalled that this was Hiromu's room, so he decided to hide here. There was something so dear to him about this, even though he had only come here just once. Soon after, Hiromu found him. It seemed they picked out the same spot to hide. Leaving the door open was quite the risk. But that was his plan all along. As they heard Hikari calling to them, Hiromu took Masaki to hide behind the curtain. Sitting together, Hiromu asked if Masaki was alright. He was sure Masaki's memories of this house weren't the best. No, he'd have to come back here someday. Hiromu wanted to ease Masaki into it. But Masaki was actually thinking fondly of this place. It was rather calming to him. Seeing Hiromu's room, he was happy. Seeing Hiromu's room showed he was raised with love. Hiromu recalled when Masaki said he was happy to be in the place he was raised. Back in the day, he used to read here a lot. He never felt one way or another about the place he grew up. But after what Masaki said, Hiromu had them leave his room the way it was. After all, he shouldn't have to change the place he treasured, but should just make more places like it. Just then, their little kids would find them. Masaki appreciated the people and places he treasured. The place he was in now was like a treasure chest. Back at the Fujioshis, Tomohiro asked Masaki if he had seen any books Hikari would like. Tomo's parents had volunteered them, so it was fine. They basically thought of Hiromu as their own kid, so Hikari was probably like their grandson. Hearing that Tomo was a big brother, Hikari approached him because he was also a big brother. Being a big brother was a tough job. Hikari would need to be patient and do a lot more stuff on his own. At nighttime, Hikari wanted to feed his baby sister again, but his papa reminded him that she couldn't eat solid food yet. She had to learn how to chew first. However, that wouldn't be happening for a while. Hikari was doing his best to be a big brother, and Masaki wanted to encourage him more. Both siblings were the most adorable. During their snack time, Hinata started crying, so Masaki went to check on her. Hiromu would then walk into the room just as his son was about to eat alone. Hikari accidentally spilled on himself, and he started crying. When Masaki came back to comfort him, he discovered Hikari had a fever. All that hard work from being a big brother finally took its toll on him. It was a mild fever, but he'd have to keep Hikari in the room with him tonight. He felt guilty for letting their son push himself so hard. Given that Hikari was at the age when he was going to remember a lot more, Masaki wanted to make sure he never felt lonely. But Hikari had been a better big brother than he had ever dreamed of. Getting to his father's residence, Hiromu wasn't happy one bit. But Masaki thought it was nice that his parents were worried about them. Aside from that, Hiromu kept hearing a weird sound from inside as Koji came to welcome them. Hiromu asked what all that sound was. Koji pointed them to the large Koi no Bori. Hikari enjoyed seeing it. On the flag next to it, his name was written. When they got inside, they would spend time taking videos of the kids. Koji felt he should have bought a blue hat for Hikari. On the other hand, Hiromu said his son looked adorable and everything. Since Koji had missed his first boy's day, he felt more compelled to hold this lavish celebration. Meanwhile, Masaki thanked Hiromu's mom for doing all this. She was just glad to see Hikari enjoying everything. Where Masaki came from, this would have been the mother's family's job. Hiromu's mother felt bad for not being able to see Masaki's parents before they passed, but she was sure they'd be relieved to see him now. Hikari would run into her room, but suddenly trip over a kimono. Masaki thought it was beautiful. That's when Hiromu's mom came, and they apologized about it. She said it wasn't hers anymore, and instead wanted Masaki to have it. Her own mother gave it to her when she was first married, and she had initially planned to give it to Masaki when he and Hiromu got married. Masaki couldn't accept something so precious. Even though it was selfish of her, Hiromu's mom felt like she had to do something. Masaki had already given her so much. Wanting them to become a true family, she felt they couldn't move forward if she pretended like the past never happened. As Hiromu watched them, his dad came beside him, saying it was important to make a person feel celebrated, even if it was coming late. Hiromu was grateful, especially since Masaki was finally smiling. Masaki noticed Hiromu standing there and began blushing. He felt a bit shy since he had never worn a kimono before. At the office, Hiromu asked Tomohiro to come along with him for a long-distance trip. Yuki was coming too. He could tell Hiromu wasn't comfortable going to this place by himself. They were going to Masaki's hometown, though the main thing was visiting his parents' grave. The entire time Hiromu had known his spouse, he had never once been there. Even the day Masaki's parents passed, he didn't want Hiromu to come back with him. Masaki left home because he was tired of being tied down due to his Omega status, and he couldn't bear to see his parents reject Hiromu. Back home, Hiromu's family wished him a happy birthday. It seemed to have slipped his mind. Hikari then gave Papa a picture he drew as a present. He'd thank his Papa for his birthday because it made everyone so happy. And he'd remind his Papa that one should say thank you to those who made them happy. Later that night, Masaki could tell Hiromu was put off by wanting to go home. He felt a bit surprised when Hiromu agreed without asking anything, feeling like his old, weak self could come out at any time. Masaki didn't have a lot of confidence, but he also wanted to make his peace with it and not remain stuck in the same place forever. Curious, Hiromu asked Masaki what the relative they were visiting was like. Masaki's uncle was a quiet man who had a son his age. He hoped his cousin was doing well. Meanwhile, Kazuhiko, Masaki's cousin, heard he'd be coming home, but he'd be shocked to hear that Masaki was married with 2 children. At a younger age, given that both were fragile and tragic, they were told to support each other through life. In the hometown, Masaki's family, along with Tomohiro and Yuki, would enjoy a private hot spring bath at night. When they got out, Hiromu complimented how nice the inn was. It was actually Masaki's first time here as well. This also happened to be where Kazu worked. Masaki had told Kazu he wanted to meet up, but his cousin said there was no need to bother. They had never quite gotten along. Just then, he showed up in front of them. He'd introduce himself to Hiromu and thank him for coming such a long way. Masaki was surprised to see him. Since he had some free time on his hands, Kazu decided to meet with him and talk. He took a look at Hikari, noting how he looked just like Masaki when he was younger. He felt bad because Masaki didn't call, despite the fact that they used to be engaged. This was shocking news to everyone. Even Hiromu knew nothing about this. However, Masaki would clear up that it was just some silly, old verbal agreement. As for why Kazu actually came here, it was to give Masaki the letter he was supposed to receive. It was from Masaki's mother and addressed to his dad, but his dad said he wanted him to have it. Knowing what the letter said, Kazu claimed Masaki wouldn't need it and had no intention of giving it to him. After they found out Masaki was an Omega, his family pitied him. They figured it was best to have him marry within his own type. The problem was that they'd never get the Omega out of the bloodline. So, Kazu was sent to watch over him, and that was how they got engaged. It was still just a verbal agreement among adults over drinks. Nothing formal. Since his parents were all for it, as a child, Masaki sometimes took it seriously. But when he got older, he realized it was meaningless. Until recently, he had genuinely forgotten about it. When everyone was asleep, Hiromu and Masaki met with Kazu alone. Kazu still refused to give Masaki the letter. He called Masaki's relationship a real Cinderella story. After seeing the mark on his neck, he'd never expected such a love story for him. Masaki had always been the type who isolated himself and preferred being alone. Kazu tried telling him then that it wasn't good being this way, but Masaki remained stubborn to the end. Hiromu then asked Kazu what his reason was for acting this way. Suddenly, Kazu yelled, "It's because you're here, obviously." But Hiromu wasn't fazed by that outburst. Rather, he looked intrigued. Kazu then furiously walked out. Masaki followed him, and Kazu asked why he had suddenly decided to come home when he usually refused. At the time, Masaki genuinely wanted to cut them all off and be alone. Kazu felt his cousin was living in a hostile environment with his mate, and wondered what his parents would think. After all, they wanted Masaki's happiness the most. Masaki slapped his hand away, saying he was wrong, then ran away. Seeing that, Yuki became furious and reprimanded Kazu for saying such awful things. Tommo would calm him down. Kazu then asked Hiromu what he thought. Hiromu admitted that Masaki had his share of hard times, and getting married had opened him up to more chances at misery. When they got together, it was like they were always on the run. No one celebrated their union. They didn't even have a ceremony. It took a long time before Hiromu's parents accepted Masaki. However, Hiromu questioned how all that mattered. He asked Kazu what made him think he knew Masaki so well. Did he know what to do to make him happy? Or what made Masaki sad? And what made him suffer, even after so much time with him? There was still so much Hiromu didn't know. Yet, people like Kazu always spoke about types and nature. Hiromu told him to use his eyes to look at Masaki and think. They were both humans. Masaki had come here for his own reasons, and he wouldn't let his miserable cousin stop him. He also made it clear they'd be taking that letter back with him. As Masaki stared at his reflection, he called himself a failure for running away again like he always did. Hiromu embraced him, saying he did nothing wrong. There was nothing more important than keeping himself safe. Masaki wished he could say the same, but he was terrified out of his mind, and he hated that about himself. He was afraid of rejection, but more so of losing everything he cared about. He regretted being an Omega. That was why he ran away from here long ago. He thought being with Hiromu might have made him stronger. He wondered why he had to be so weak. Hiromu told him it was normal. Everyone was afraid of being rejected by people they cared about, and of the things they cared about being rejected. But Masaki was the one who told him everything would be alright. Every time Masaki stumbled, Hiromu would take his hand and recount it all with him. How Hikari smiled when he was with him, the look on Hinata's face as she slept in his arms, and how Masaki looked as he gazed at them. Hiromu would recount it all until Masaki remembered and smiled. After all, that was what building a life together was about. Masaki started crying, His husband was truly the warmest person he'd ever known. Hiromu loved the person he was now, and the person he was 20 years before they met. From the bottom of his heart, Masaki told Hiromu how proud he was to be his mate. The next day, Masaki went to meet Kazu. His cousin noticed his eyes were puffy from crying. He said the way Hiromu told him off stuck in his craw. He apologized to Masaki for saying hurtful words. He knew he was being unfair about the letter, but he was surprised. Kazu had figured Masaki would be all alone like he was back then. That way, he could tell him to stay here. As he tried to touch Masaki, Hikari stopped his hand. He wasn't going to let anyone have his Masaki. The boy would start crying, but Masaki assured him that he wasn't going anywhere. They'd be together forever. Giving off a bright smile, Masaki made it clear he was happy now. He'd always had that gentle smile since they were kids. Hikari would then bid Kazu goodbye. After that, Masaki would return to his family with Hikari holding the letter. Following that day, they'd walk through a beautiful flower field on the way to Masaki's parents' grave. Masaki recalled Kazu telling him that he was being honest when he said he didn't need the letter. Getting to the grave, he remembered the words of his mother. She didn't know how many times she wished she could have been like him. If she had understood him better, known him better, then maybe things could have been different. She had forced so many things on him, believing it was for the best. But with Masaki gone, his mother wished for only one thing. She hoped he would meet someone he could find comfort in. It was a wonderful thing to have someone like that in one's life. She prayed for her son to end up with someone by his side who would love him. She wanted him to love in an unpretentious, straightforward manner. Kneeling before the grave, Hiromu promised to take care of Masaki. At the Ogiwara residence, Kazu was surprised to see Hiromu and Hikari welcoming him. Masaki's uncle had invited them since he wanted to meet his new family. Kazu now realized why his dad was so insistent on his coming home. Given the way he left things off, he also felt awkward to look at Masaki again, and also Hiromu, who was smiling way too innocently. You can see Hiromu's murderous aura oozing off. Hikari wasn't happy to see Kazu as well. Masaki apologized for imposing on him like this. He was still happy to see his cousin though. He mentioned that Hikari looked forward to seeing him, though it didn't look that way. When Kazu spoke to him, Hikari gave a warm smile. He seemed to actually like Kazu. In fact, Hiromu mentioned Kazu was all Hikari talked about on their drive here. He was obviously jealous. No wonder it looked like he wanted to end Kazu. While Hikari and Masaki's uncle were outside doing yard work, Hiromu sat by the window taking pictures. Kazu then brought an old album for him to look at. There were a lot of Masaki's pictures in it. Opening the album, the first picture Hiromu came across was a cute one of Masaki. Even Hinata could recognize him. Looking at her, Kazu thought she really looked like Masaki. Back then, when the family got together, the adults would stay inside drinking while the kids played outside. However, Masaki tended not to join the other kids due to his poor health. Kazu remembered him sitting on his mother's lap reading a picture book instead. So, he developed this image of Masaki as a fragile little thing. But now, it was all reversed. Masaki had changed in so many ways. Ever since that day, Kazu had times when he thought he was really an awful person. Heading outside and meeting Masaki, he started to think that wasn't really true. After all, people changed little by little. Both Kazu and Masaki had changed in their own ways. Kazu mentioned that Hiromu was kind of awesome. Masaki would blush, agreeing with him. Still, it annoyed Kazu, considering how scary Hiromu was, and got under Kazu's skin. Masaki said his husband usually teased people the more comfortable he was with them. At night, while the kids were asleep, Masaki and Hiromu admired the scenery outside. After embracing and kissing each other, Masaki thanked his husband for coming with him again. Both Kazu and his uncle thought really highly of Hiromu. All the things Masaki never thought about, all the things Masaki never thought would happen when he got together with him were becoming reality. It was all thanks to Hiromu. Masaki wanted them to come back here together. Even if he was afraid, he'd still like to come back. The things Hiromu had said then gave him courage. He then asked Hiromu to also love the person he was before they met. Naturally, Hiromu loved all of him. Back home, their peaceful lives resumed once more. With Hiromu leaving for work, Masaki and the kids took a walk to the park. Hikari kept talking about how he wanted to eat hamburgers and tomatoes. He liked red stuff. Just then, he'd be surprised to come across another kid at the park. Hikari's blunt first impression of a new kid, Tomato, quickly turns into a genuine friendship when he properly introduces himself to Michiru, a boy who just moved in with his father, Mochizuki, after losing his spouse. Masaki connects with Mochizuki over their shared struggles as parents, sensing his grief and guilt about not being present enough before his partner's death. Meanwhile, Hikari and Michi naturally bond, giving both families a sense of comfort and hope. As Mochizuki prepares to return for work, he worries about leaving Michi alone, revealing how deeply he cares despite his insecurities as a parent. Masaki offers to watch Michi, And although Hiromu is cautious about trusting a near stranger, he ultimately supports Masaki after seeing how meaningful the connection is. For Masaki, watching the kids' effortless friendship softens his own guarded nature and makes him want to preserve that warmth. While staying with the Fujioshi family, Michi's quiet strength begins to crack. He panics and cries when he can't find his dad after waking up from a nap, showing he's been bottling up his emotions. Masaki recognizes this and comforts him, while Hikari's simple presence helps Michi recover. This moment highlights how much both children rely on each other, drawing strength from pure, uncomplicated affection. When Mochizuki returns, he realizes Michi has been suppressing his grief, and both his father and son silently reaffirm their love and determination to support each other. Their bond grows alongside Hikari and Michi's friendship, which becomes something both families look forward to every day. This segment closes on a lighter note during Halloween, where a brief scare turns into a playful reveal, reinforcing the growing sense of family and connection. The twins burst in with chaotic energy, immediately overwhelming Hikari and Michi, while Hiromu shuts them down fast for getting too close to Masaki. Hikari, still wary, goes into full protective mode, especially when the twins try to win him over with a ridiculous plan involving fake heroics. Their scheme completely backfires, but Michi steps up, calling them out for lying and defending Hikari, which earns Hikari's admiration and finally breaks the tension. Meanwhile, a more subtle but important thread unfolds with Yuki and Tommo. The twins' teasing forces Yuki to confront his feelings. He can't define their relationship, but it's clearly more than friendship. A small moment, like sharing candy with someone you love, hits harder than expected, leaving Yuki flustered and self-aware, while Tomohiro quietly accepts it without hesitation. Later, Hiromu confronts Tommo about Yuki, pointing out that Tommo has never shown this level of attachment to anyone before. Even the twins notice something unusual. Yuki isn't the type to cling to just anyone, hinting their connection runs deeper than either of them fully admits. Back home, Masaki gently reassures Yuki that love doesn't need a strict definition, encouraging him to accept what he feels instead of overthinking. This builds into a quiet, impactful realization when Yuki accidentally witnesses Hiromu and Masaki sharing a private, intimate moment, seeing what genuine love looks like firsthand. That moment sticks with him. Lying in bed later, still thinking about Tommo, Yuki begins to understand his feelings more clearly. When he invites Tommo to share the bed, it's not played as a joke. It's a soft, uncertain step towards something deeper, signaling a shift in their relationship. Yuki's impulsive move to share a bed with Tommo turns awkward fast, forcing him to confront how touchy and emotionally attached he's been. Embarrassed, he pulls back, but the tension lingers, especially when he realizes Tommo sees those moments as charming, hinting their connection means more than Yuki wants to admit. The next day, things feel normal on the surface, but Hiromu notices the shift too. Tomo's no longer denying anything, and Yuki's becoming more self-aware. At the same time, Hiro unknowingly crosses paths with Mochi, setting up a quiet but important collision between their worlds. When Mochi finally meets Hiromu, everything falls apart. His fear and trauma around alphas resurfaces instantly, especially as his heat approaches, and Hiromu reacts instinctively to his pheromones. Despite Hiromu's calm and respectful attitude, Mochi can't separate him from the danger he associates with alphas, and the tension escalates quickly. Mochi ultimately decides to cut ties with the Fujioshis, believing it's the only way to protect his son from a painful future. His fear overrides the trust that had been building, leaving Masaki confused and hurt, especially after finally finding someone who understood him. Meanwhile, Hiromu struggles with his own instincts, feeling ashamed that his body reacted at all. Masaki reassures him in a deeply emotional moment, affirming that their bond is stronger than biology, that they chose each other and always will. The conflict ends on a bittersweet note. Despite the sudden separation, Hikari still wants to see Mochi, unaware of the deeper issues. Masaki and Hiromu decide they won't just accept the distance. They'll go and face Mochi directly, determined to hold on to the connection that meant so much to all of them. After a week of silence, Masaki struggles with the idea that some relationships might just end. But Hiromu grounds him, reminding him that while not everyone can be understood, some people are worth trying for. Encouraged, Masaki reaches out to Mochi, determined not to lose a connection that mattered so much. At the same time, Yuki pieces together the deep truth about Masaki and Hiromu's relationship. Their bond wasn't instant or easy, but built on years of respect, patience, and mutual choice rather than instinct. Realizing this, he confronts Mochi and challenges his assumptions, showing him that what Masaki and Hiromu have goes beyond the limits he fears. When Masaki and Mochi finally meet again, the tension breaks. Mochi admits his fear isn't just about alphas. It's about his own unstable pheromones and the possibility that his son might suffer the same way. His decision to cut ties came from desperation, not hatred. Masaki counters this by offering something Mochi didn't think he had anymore: support. The emotional turning point comes from the kids. Hikari tearfully begging to play with Michi, openly saying he loves him. That raw, innocent honesty pushes Mochi to let go of his fear, and Michi runs straight back to Hikari, restoring their bond. From there, the adults shift too. Hiromu and Masaki challenge Mochi's belief that their children need to be shielded from everything, arguing that they should be supported as they face life themselves. Mochi finally accepts that he doesn't have to carry everything alone. This story closes on a warm payoff. Mochi and Michi fully welcomed into the Fujioshi family's lives, celebrating Christmas together with a lively, chaotic group. What started as fear and separation turns into chosen family, built not on instinct or sameness, but trust, understanding, and love. Wow. Well, that was a story. First introduction into the Omegaverse, and I gotta say, it wasn't a good one. If you guys do have some good ones you'd recommend, leave it in the comments and I'll check it out. For now though, watch this next video. It's me, Comfy T. I'll see you all in the next one.